Deep in the rugged, unforgiving mountains of northern Pakistan and Afghanistan, a legend walks. It's a creature spoken of in hushed tones by shepherds, a figure that bridges the gap between man and ape. They call it the Barmanu, the big hairy one. For centuries, tales of a bipedal ape-like humanoid have echoed through the Chitrol and Karakoram ranges. Is it simply folklore, a mountain myth to explain the unexplainable? Or is there something more to the stories of this wild man, said to wear animal skins and possess a gaze that is unnervingly human? Unlike the famous Yeti of the Himalayas or the Almas of Central Asia, the Barmanu carves out its own territory, both geographically and in the chilling details of its legend. This isn't just another Bigfoot story. The accounts of the Barmanu suggest a creature with a primitive intelligence, a relic hominid hiding in one of the world's most remote landscapes. Today, we're venturing into this mysterious region to uncover the story of Pakistan's Bigfoot. We'll explore the chilling folklore, follow the trail of a dedicated scientist who may have gotten too close to the truth, and examine the tantalizing evidence he left behind. What did he find in those mountains, and what secrets does the Barmanu still hold? The name Barmanu comes from the Khawar language, but its legend is woven into the fabric of numerous cultures across the region, from Urdu and Pashto to Shina. For the shepherds who spend their lives in these healtitude pastures, the Barmanu is more than a story. It's a very real part of their world. They are the primary source of sightings, the keepers of this oral tradition. In their stories, the Barmanu is a complex figure. It's described as a wild man, a human-ape hybrid. Some tales are dark, painting the creature as a kidnapper of women, driven by a primal instinct to mate. This disturbing element sets it apart from many other cryptid legends, adding a layer of fear to the mystery. Another peculiar detail consistently appears in the folklore. The Barmanu is said to wear animal pelts on its head and back. This isn't the behavior of a simple ape. It suggests a level of cognition, the use of primitive tools or clothing a trait more aligned with our own ancient ancestors. Is this a cultural memory of a different kind of human? A relic hominid that survived into the modern age? This very question is what drew the attention of the scientific community, and one man in particular who would dedicate his life, and ultimately lose it, in pursuit of the answer. The story of the Barmanu cannot be told without talking about Jordi Magrane, a Spanish zoologist based in France. Magrane became fascinated by the tales of relic hominids across Asia. He saw the Barmanu not just as folklore, but as a potential zoological discovery, a living link to our own evolutionary past. Between 1987 and the early 2000s, he launched the first and only systematic scientific search for the creature. He moved away from collecting blurry photos and focused on the most valuable evidence he could find: human testimony. Magrane's method was ingenious. He created an identification kit, a collection of drawings showing various known and theoretical beings. It included apes, monkeys, modern Aboriginal peoples, and illustrations of extinct hominids. Like Neanderthals, he even included a drawing of the infamous Minnesota Iceman, another cryptid proposed by the father of cryptozoology, Bernard Magrane. Traveled through the remote valleys of northern Pakistan, interviewing more than 50 eyewitnesses, mostly shepherds who claimed to have seen the Barmanu firsthand. The results he got were astonishingly consistent. He would lay out the drawings and ask the witnesses, which of these looks most like what you saw? Time and time again, across different villages and different sightings, the witnesses didn't point to the apes or the monkeys. They didn't point to the Minnesota Iceman. They pointed to one specific image, a scientific reconstruction of what Heuvelmans had termed Homo pongoides, an ape-like man, essentially a living Neanderthal. The consistency was staggering. It suggested that these people weren't just describing a bear or misidentifying a known animal. They were all describing the same, specific, unknown creature. Magrane published his findings in a 1992 paper, formally introducing the wild men of Pakistan to the scientific world and arguing that a relic hominid was living in the mountains of Central Asia. He had transformed a local legend into a credible scientific inquiry. In May of 1994, Jordi Magrane, accompanied by a researcher named Anne Malisend, focused their search on the Shishika Valley, a hotspot for Barmanu sightings. They weren't just looking for footprints or physical traces. They were listening. One evening, As dusk settled over the valley, they heard it. A series of strange, guttural sounds echoed from the slopes above. These were not the calls of any known animal in the region. Magrena and Malisand, both trained researchers, analyzed what they heard. Their conclusion was chilling. The sounds, they believed, could only have been produced by a primitive voice box, something physiologically different from a modern human's, yet more complex than an ape's. It was the kind of acoustic evidence that cryptozoologists dream of, a vocalization that seemed to match the physical descriptions of a Neanderthal-like creature. It suggested a being capable of speech, but a crude, prehistoric form of it. This encounter solidified Magrena's belief that he was on the verge of a monumental discovery. He had consistent eyewitness testimony pointing to a specific type of hominid, and now he had acoustic data that seemed to corroborate it. Everything was pointing towards the existence of a creature straight out of prehistory. But Magrena's quest was about to take a dark and tragic turn, and the mystery of the Barmanu would become intertwined with his own. Jody Magrane spent years living among the people of northern Pakistan, immersing himself in the culture to better understand the creature he was hunting. His dedication was total. He believed he was close to proving the existence of the Barmanu, but in August 2002, his research came to a sudden and violent end. He was found murdered in his house in Afghanistan, where he had been continuing his work. The circumstances surrounding his death remain murky, but his loss was a devastating blow to cryptozoology. The world's foremost, and perhaps only, scientific expert on the Barmanu was gone. With his death, the active on-the-ground search for the creature effectively stopped. All that remains of his groundbreaking work are his published papers, a handful of video interviews, and the detailed accounts preserved by other researchers like Lauren Coleman. Magrena's data, especially the consistent identification of the Homo pongoids figure, remains the most compelling evidence for the Barmanu's existence. But without him to continue the search, it's a cold case. So, where does that leave us? The Barmanu remains an enigma, trapped between science and folklore. The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete. We have dozens of eyewitnesses all describing the same creature, a hominid that looks remarkably like a Neanderthal. We have a report of strange, primitive vocalizations recorded by trained scientists, and we have a geographic range that neatly fills the gap between the territories of the Yeti and the Almas, suggesting a real, distinct population. Yet, there is no body, no DNA, no undisputed photograph. Skeptics argue that the Barmanu is a combination of misidentified wildlife, like the Himalayan brown bear, and deeply ingrained cultural folklore. Shepherds, in isolated, rugged terrain, they say, are prone to turn in shadows and strange noises into monsters. The animal skin clothing could be a folkloric detail added over generations to humanize the beast, and the guttural sounds could have been any number of undiscovered animal calls. But the work of Jody Magrane presents a powerful counter-argument. Why would so many independent witnesses, separated by miles of treacherous terrain, all point to the exact same drawing of a Neanderthal-like man? That level of consistency is difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence or cultural storytelling. It suggests a shared, real-world experience. The mountains of Pakistan keep their secrets well. Perhaps the Barmanu is a ghost, a legend that haunts the high pass, or perhaps hiding in the deep valleys of the Karakoram. A small population of relic hominids continues to survive, a living window into our own deep past, watching us from the shadows. The truth, for now, remains out of reach, walking on two legs, somewhere in the wilderness. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the mystery of the Barmanu. What do you think? Is it a real undiscovered primate, or a fascinating piece of folklore? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the unknown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more adventures into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time.